Welcome back to the Yoga Life channel and our Heart and Soul conversations today. We've dressed up as if it was Christmas. We just found out that we both came up in red and we were loving it. So maybe we'll use this one for a Christmas edition. I don't know. Lauren is with us today. Lauren Becker, who is a relationship and intimacy expert. Really interesting conversations with her, and I'm really enjoying her company and her insights. And what we said today was that we want to talk about this feeling of being dried up in your life. I don't know if you've ever experienced this when you are bored with your life, maybe bored with your job. You haven't in a while explored something new. You haven't done something exciting. Life doesn't feel as juicy as it used to feel. And you're kind of feeling like an old shriveled up prune energetically. So what can we do to bring excitement and energy and juiciness back into our lives? Lauren and I were talking earlier, and we came to the conclusion that really it's an issue of creativity and how being disconnected from ourselves stifles our creativity. So maybe Lauren, you can tell us about that a little bit, and then we can see how this can translate into juicy living.
Yeah, so what happens is we actually disconnect from our bodily senses, and when we do that, we stop actually receiving life into us. And as we know, that creativity is a manifested form of life. So if we've stopped receiving life into our body, then essentially the natural byproduct of that is going to be a dried up version of life. Essentially, the way that I really like to explain it is almost like a dry desert bed, and it's like we're trying to force creation to happen, and this comes from trying to control what it's supposed to look like, trying to feel like this is the direction that it's supposed to go in, thinking that we know exactly what's happening, keeping ourselves busy as well, because we're essentially avoiding being in the feelings of our body, being in the sensations of life coming into us. And when we can really open up our relationship with our body and with life, that then starts to really cultivate a space for life to would almost be like water starting to form in a dry desert bed, starting to form on the top.
For sure. And when it's us again, right? One thing that I relate to very strongly is the sense of being disconnected from myself. From me, I think in my experience, it has mostly been when I've tried to follow other people's expectations of me rather than doing what I know to be right, to the degree that at some point I actually thought I didn't know what was right for me anymore. This is like years and years into a marriage. And I think a lot of women experience that at some point in their life when they're catering so much to the kids' needs, the partner's needs, the expectations at work, etc., that almost like we go through our day busy all the time without ever truly connecting to ourselves. And that doesn't have to be bubble baths, that doesn't have to be hour-long meditations. They can be really simple techniques, right? How do you connect to yourself when you're really busy or have been? I know that you have really designed your life in a way that works for you in that regard. But how can we find ourselves back and add that juice back into our life?
So there's a few things that are coming through for me right now. Creating space to put on some music, and it might only be one song. A couple of songs would be amazing. Creating space to put on some music and rub our body with oil, feel our body, touch our body. That would be the first thing, and just literally be in what our body actually feels like for us. One of the other ways in which we can do this is when we're in the ocean, allowing ourselves to feel what the ocean feels like as we move throughout the waves. So really slowing ourselves down. Slowing down in what we're doing and being incredibly present with what it feels like is really key. So we can even do this when we're making a cup of coffee in the morning, slowing it all the way down and being so present with each step of the way, and noticing how each step of making a cup of coffee feels like. And what actually starts to happen, I know you said before around women getting to the stage where we are so busy. We do literally so many things. We have so many different roles that we're playing. And the beauty of the feminine essence, and this is gender, this is not gender specific, the beauty of the feminine essence is that it's actually magnetic, it's nourishing, it is creation, it is literally creative energy. And it's like water and nourishment for our own bodies as much as it is for the bodies of our partners as well. And what I notice a lot of the times is when we start to feel dry in our business, in our lives, in ourselves, and that then translates into our relationships and our friendships as well, all areas of life, because everything touches everything.
Absolutely. And it's like we say things in our creativity like the creative juices aren't flowing, but the truth is that's then even true sometimes in our own body. I think, ladies, you know what I'm talking about, but it can also translate into dryness in our skin. It can translate into brittle hair, etc. It's like when we are not fully filled up, when we are not fully nourished, we can see it everywhere. And then we are often trying to treat the symptoms, right? We're trying to find some ointment here or some better hair product there. But really, when we look at ourselves in a holistic way and we are fully nurturing ourselves, we will be able to address a lot of those things. Like I remember when I was still living in Berlin and then moved to Australia, I had battled quite a serious skin condition for a while, where I had actually really incredible dry spots in my face. And I've always had good skin before and thereafter, but I was really dried up, literally. And I made it one of my projects when we first moved here 11 years ago to find a good naturopath and find a way of setting this right. And it was all around cutting certain foods out, less coffee, definitely less sugar. I was never aware at the time that that amount of coffee and caffeine in my system basically had me in a permanent kind of adrenal overdrive, which had led to adrenal fatigue. That I was stopping to eat certain foods, starting to eat certain other foods, much more green, much more vegetarian. That was a big part of my journey as well. And it wasn't so much about what I was or wasn't eating. It was very much about taking the time and being present with myself, slowing things down enough. And even though I just wanted to keep going and wanted to do new things, it's like, no, right now I'm in the focus for once in many, many years. And that set it straight, and it's never come back. So that's something I can strongly recommend, that it's a very powerful practice to make that time for yourself and give yourself that reset, both on a mental and on a physical level, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So then what else can we do to get the juices flowing again, Lauren?
It's really important to be as it's like you're trying to let life soak into you. So to be as present but also receptive to life soaking into you.
That's a big one, receptivity. Tell us more about receptivity. That's been a really big game changer for me, because I used to not be at all. Would love to hear more from you about that.
Yeah, so I find that a lot of women especially, well, actually just everyone, we have a hard time, even saying yes to things or accepting compliments. We can even start here. like allowing ourselves to accept compliments when people give them to us and letting them soak into our body. And the way that we can let them soak into our body is, what does that actually feel like if I let myself believe that that's true, if I allow myself to believe that that's true, and just noticing how that can soak into the body. And this will be different for each person. Again, being outside in nature, nature's a really big and beautiful activator for evoking within us an invitation for receptivity. So being in the bliss of walking through a forest, or even crossing a road and having the sun beam on your skin, how do you let that soak into your body, all these different elements soaking into you? So as we do this, you might start to notice that you might feel a little bit like you can't actually feel anything, because a lot of the times when we've switched off for so long, it can feel a little bit challenging to actually start to feel something. And I guarantee you that the more you start to do it, eventually it will start to amplify in your body and your senses will start to awaken. Smells will start to increase, sounds will start to increase. You'll notice yourself, maybe, you might even notice tingles in your body when you go some places. You'll notice that parts of your body almost start to come alive again. And being really present and having an awareness that that's actually happening will be a part of the process as well. And just know that, like, how do you welcome that in even more?
Yeah. When I listen to you here, a big thing that comes to my mind, and we've touched on this previously in our conversations, is sensuality. And sensuality not so much driven when it comes to like sexual intercourse or sexual intimacy with another person, but sensuality with life itself, right? The pictures that come to my mind is just like biting into, or like having a spoonful of really overripe mango, or drinking a freshly pressed juice, or feeling the sand under my feet. I can remember that as teenager, I was a part of a church group, and we did exercises with each other. It was all training for youth leadership. And one of the exercises was that we were blindfolded and we had different things we were touching, like being handed, say, a pine cone, or being handed a piece of moss. Another exercise we did, and you can do this with your kids or with your friend, this is the most beautiful exercise, is people who trust each other. It's a trust exercise. One gets blindfolded, the other takes them by the hand and leads them barefoot through the environment, through say grass, then over gravel, then to the beach. I mean, here we're so close to the beach, right? And initially it's just a blindfold, but hand in hand. Then it is talking them through it, not holding hands anymore, but still the other person is blindfolded. And later it's only by sounds even, or by the rustling of a piece of paper. The beauty of that is that the person who is blindfolded, obviously you should have trust with your leader there, is becoming incredibly tuned into their senses, both in their feet, but also in the perception of everything around them, because the eyes are blindfolded. Remember this being a really impactful thing, and I've done that with groups over and over since, because it not only supports the trust within that group and in that community, but it also translates into this being hyper perceptive after the exercise, and I absolutely love that. So talk to us a little bit more about the sensual aspect, and how to, because again, we're talking about juiciness in life, right? And sensuality, and again, can be sexual, doesn't have to be though.
Yeah.
How can sensuality be reignited to get the juices flowing?
I love that you've asked me this. So we have a primitive body, right? So we've got 5 different senses: our sight, our taste, our touch, our sound, and our smell. main senses. And a lot of the times, I'm going to go as far as to say most of the times we're functioning from our sight and allowing that to dictate our life. With our primitive body, we have the capacity to activate all of the senses in our body. And what happens when we do that is we start to then enliven the cells of our body. So we're starting to receive life in a different capacity through different parts of our body. So through sound, through taste, through touch. And we're actually taking life into our body through these avenues. And our body experiences it differently. And parts of our body, areas of our body start to come alive. We have the capacity as humans to awaken our instinctual body, but also our sensual body as well. So they're kind of one and the same. So just like animals in the wild, the more we activate our senses and awaken our body, then, you know, when you see animals in the wild, they have the capacity to know, oh my gosh, there's another animal like X amount of yards away, and they can sense it, right? It's a sensory thing. And that's what like allows them to kind of move throughout their life. We have the same capacity. And as we grow this, like you said, it's actually not in an intimate, in a sexual kind of context. It's actually in everything that we do in our everyday life. We do things because we want to feel a certain way.
Yeah.
The more we open up our sensual body and activate these senses, the more we grow our capacity to feel the things that we actually truly want to be feeling. And this becomes pleasing to us.
Yeah.
This is what we're actually mostly yearning for.
Absolutely. And it sounds like this abundance that comes then from within. Like to me, I don't know why I keep going back to that juicy mango. It's a thing. Imagine yourself for a moment, if you are watching this, if you were fully tuned into all your senses, you were willing and able to fully open them up, even just for a couple of hours on the weekend, when you are taking a walk outside, or actually sometimes even when you're lying in bed in the morning. One of my most beautiful lying in a bed in the morning memories is when I used to live in Spain. I was like 21 years old. I did a year of exchange there, going to uni in Granada, which is like the heart of Andalusia. It's very sensual, all of it. And I had this neighbor across the street who I never met, who every Sunday morning was playing flamenco music out loud, windows open, and I'd just be lying in my bed. It was pretty cold, the room, but sun was flooding in, and I'd be under my warm duna, reading a good book, because I had like a pile of 20 different books I had to go through for university, Spanish literature. And then this beautiful sound coming in, and then my housemaid making toast and making coffee, and that smell. And I remember lying in bed there thinking, like, this is the ultimate life. And this is me being a student, not having much money, not having much stuff. That room was bare as. And it was absolute bliss, because I was in that moment so tuned into my senses and so incredibly content being here, being now. I'm just like, wish I could hold that. I can, like, if you hear me describe it, I can feel it in my heart. So it's one of those blueprint moments that I have for being completely happy and content. Yeah. And so it's almost like building a library, a mental and emotional, essential library of those really juicy moments that we can then draw on, come back to recreate, to live fully. Why I'm saying this is because what I think is when we are fully filled up from the inside, then it spills over into every area of our lives, right? We spoke before, you said that often people come to you predominantly because they are looking to improve something in their relationships. But really, when you then bring it back to self and really make some significant changes, it doesn't stop at the relationships, does it?
No, and that exactly like you just said, you can't output something if it's not inside of you. So this is essentially where the creation part comes into it. You can't create something that's in its most magnificent, optimal, highest, most beautiful forming creation if it doesn't come from that place inside. If there's essentially a dried up nothingness that is the foundation on which it's being birthed, that's what's going to come out, and that's then also what you're going to receive back. So I guarantee that if you're experiencing that in your everyday life, that feeling of, oh, this isn't satisfying me anymore, this isn't fulfilling me anymore, that's also what you're gifting out as well. And not only gifting out in physical manifestations, but also in love and in life and in joy. That's not going to be existent.
And in relationships to your children, because
Yes.
often we think like, yeah, my relationship is unsatisfying. Remember that your kids are also looking at you in terms of role modeling. They are watching what you are doing and how much you are willing to give to yourself. And I trust that often we're coming back with this, I'm busy, I need to do more for the kids, I have the job, and then I need to drive the kids places, etc., etc. And we're almost finding that as an excuse for not taking time for ourselves. Make sure that you remember that if you are living in this dried up space, you are teaching your children, particularly your daughters, that that's what self-care looks like, that that's how much they are worthy of receiving, that that's what they are willing to get. So if you are using your kids as an excuse that you shouldn't be doing more for yourself, that you can't be doing more for yourself, you are doing them a favor and you're honoring them and their journey by role modeling that. So stop using your kids as an excuse. I've just seen that with quite a few mothers, because obviously we're always busy doing stuff for our kids. Juiciness in life, creativity overflowing. How can we, like if we have somebody watching who, and I'm just kind of making this up, but it is a thing, who has felt that for years and years they have been kind of not living their truth. They don't even know where to start. Like what are simple things to start off with, to start cultivating it, and as you say, to plant these little seeds on the inside that then can translate into experience that can come in and nourish, so that we can grow something hopefully exponentially. Where do we start?
Yeah, I think it's I just want to, something that you touched on before, I think it's what I've seen is it's equally as important for men and women, for boys and girls to really to cultivate this. Women have the capacity to, what I've noticed anyway, a lot more is that women have the capacity to expand it a lot more, because a lot of the times we have, it's just a little bit more natural, not always, generally, but also men have, and males have that capacity to do it as well, and this is where it brings that richness, and it's incredibly important for all of us to be in that fulfillment and that richness. And I feel like I want to go back to what I mentioned at the beginning around slowing down, taking time to slow down and be really, really present. I think it's really beautiful what you said around being present with your children, and rather than being so busy, how do you just actually create space and create time and be completely with your children, if you have children. Breathing into the body is a big one. Also, if you can literally feel your body and use different types of, pressure on your body. Like that's another way.
So self-massage, is that what you're saying?
You can do self-massage, or you can just simply like stroke the top of your hand with your eyes closed. I always will get my clients to close their eyes to take out the mind. Stroking the top of the hand, and you can do it. You can tap it. You can use different pressures. That I find is a really powerful one. And one of the other things that I've also gotten my clients to do before is we've gone bushwalking, and like you mentioned before, I've had them be silent in the bushwalk, and as they pick up and notice different leaves or different twigs, how do they take it in through their body, and then any sensations or any sound that wants to come out only can come out through sound, not verbalizing. It's like any kind of receivership into the body of that item. It's like, how do you receive that item into your body, the beauty of that item? And then how does it want to be expressed out through sound? What's the sound that wants to come out?
Interesting. And with the sound instead of words, you're probably again circumnavigating the rationalizing brain and letting that more right brain sort of thing manifest itself, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. And it sounds like your work is very right brain dominated, right? Which is like a strong counterbalance to that rational, adult, grown up kind of left brain trying to analyze everything. It's very much, it sounds like your work is very right brain focused to bring things back into balance. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a dance with both, to be honest, because we need both. You need the structure in order to have the flow, right? You can't have the water, the dam of the water, without the banks of the river.
That's a beautiful metaphor, yeah.
Yeah. So you definitely need both, but when people initially come to me, I find that that's almost like the first part that we need to exercise and awaken and enliven first and foremost, because we have been more dominant in the opposite.
Yeah, interesting. And isn't that fascinating to think that this structure is needed for the flow to be able to take place? Because often when I would think about this, it would be like, what I need less of in my life is must-haves and must-dos and schedules and timings and email replies and more like less left brain. However, if you put the right kind of very well thought out structure in place, then within that container, things can flow. And I found that in my life as well in terms of planning and organizing, so that when I don't have to think about that constantly because I am well organized, then within that container I can just flow with who I am and do what I want to be doing.
Yeah, and you're more relaxed and able to flow in that as well. You're more able to actually take it in and be engaged in the sensual aspect of it, the pleasing aspect of it, rather than thinking that you need to be elsewhere.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So to bring creativity out, what I've heard so far is kind of breathe into your body, become sensual with your body, become sensual with your way of interacting with your environment in general, right? Become very present with it. Anything else that you would add to that?
Fun and play.
Yes, that sounds awesome.
Always.
Speak about that another minute or two.
Almost could be the very thing that you start doing it with. And so like actually schedule a day, if not a weekend or a couple of days in your life where you even like rollerblading or playing guitar or something that feels maybe even really ridiculous to you or just wild to even think about doing. Go and do it.
Yeah, awesome.
Literally go and do it.
Yeah, okay, homework for you guys. Sit down and write a list of 10 really wacko things that you could do within the next months that would bring out your playfulness and your childlike self. Not childish, childlike self. To bring that aspect again in, because that's when we were really juicy, right? That's childhood, is that juicy time in life. Okay, thank you so much, guys, for watching. I trust this has been really helpful when it comes to wanting to live an even more juicy life. If you want to do a homework, as we said before, write down 10 things that you can do to bring your inner child back up, to be more alive and bring more juiciness back into your life. If you would like to find out more about Lauren and her work, you can look into the comment section below. We're going to leave her details there. And as always, if you enjoy our content, please like our channel. And then if you would like to have notifications about upcoming content, you can hit the bell button. And lastly, if you have any thoughts of your own, any ideas, any questions for Lauren, for myself, you can leave them in the comment section and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you so much for being here and spending this time with us, and see you again soon.